Okay. Hi, and welcome to episode 8 of Painted Bread Quarterly Slush Pile. We take more time than other editorial boards, but we stand behind our methodology. So much so that we're going to share our process with you through this podcast. Welcome to the editorial table. I'm Kathleen Volk-Miller, and I teach here at Drexel and run the graduate program in publishing. I'm co-editor of the Painted Bread Quarterly, and I write essay and memoir. We have a smaller group with us today, but let's hear from everybody else. Tim Fitz is here in the studio with me.
Hi, I am Tim Fitz, and I also teach here at Drexel University. And I've been on the editorial staff here at the Painted Bread Quarterly for about 3 years now. I'm a short story writer and a novelist, and I have a new short story called Does Anything Beautiful Emerge? That will appear in this month's edition of Yarn Magazine. And next month, the story will appear in the Head in the Hands Bible Belt Almanac.
Very, very cool. Marion?
Hi, I'm Marion Wren. I'm the co-editor of Painted Bread Quarterly, and I am heading up the Abu Dhabi staff of the Painted Bread. It's about 6 p.m. here in Abu Dhabi, and I'm watching a line of worker buses head back to what's called a work camp. Sounds so terrible, but it's the horizon outside of my window. There's about 20 buses lined up. It's a shift change, and folks are going home for the evening. And I just wanted to share that image with you.
Mm-hmm. Jason.
Hi, this is Jason Schneiderman. I am back in Brooklyn. I am associate editor at the Painted Bread Quarterly, and I actually have a book party for my new book of poems, Primary Source, which is out from Red Hen Books, and that's tonight.
How fun. I wish I could be there. It's the week of writing here at Drexel, and we have 19 events going this week. I don't even know which number I'm on. I just know that it's Wednesday, hump day, and that's all about what I'm about this week. Marion, how did you manage to get a cold in Abu Dhabi? Isn't it in the 90s there by now?
It is in the 90s. It's ridiculously humid. And I have, as Kathy knows, very curly hair. So I walk around looking like a chia pet in this humidity. It just grows massively. But I think I got a cold from the air conditioning.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing about Abu Dhabi people don't tell you. Like, it's freezing when it's hot out because the air conditioning is so cranked up inside these buildings.
Right.
So yeah, I will try to speak with my sexy horse voice today.
That's terrific. Well, today we have 3 poems by 3 different poets, so that's a little different. Smaller group, smaller poems here, and no thematic connection. So let's get rolling, and let's start with Todd Pierce. Who would like to read the first poem up today?
I can take it.
Thank you.
Todd Pierce. If only you could remember, when we came upon the muddy river, between the mountains, I realize now we're not there. Our dog crawling out of the lungs of the mysterious beast he found ahead of us, lost as much, but more at home. We learned to distinguish dream from wish, surrounded by the forest's tired breath, chilling the sky. Our noses bunched up against the scent of something not quite death, as I plucked a bloated tick off your nape and popped it under the rolling clouds, fine raindrops running red down the dog's white side.
Man, is that chock full of images. If only you could remember. I think if I was in a situation like that, I'd remember it.
Who is it addressed? I don't really understand who it is that he's with. I mean, I guess that's open, right? That it could be a father who has Alzheimer's, or a wife who's had a head injury, or a lover who's, just, kind of blocked it out.
It can also be an other that's just gone in any way, death or non-togetherness, because this person the speaker in the poem now doesn't have anybody to remember this day with. You know? I think that's another possible read.
About the kind of surrealism, like the mountains that I realize now were not there. The dogs crawling out of the lungs of a mysterious beast.
So that's what caught my attention on the poem. I remember flagging these up when we were reading them in our slush pile, thinking that they might be a fit for the monsters issue. I can't actually recall if Todd himself identified these for this poem for that monsters issue, but there was something so like uncanny about it. Like it seems like it puts you in this sort of, you know, familiar setting, right? Like this sort of, you're in nature by a muddy river, but then you get this, I realize now we're not there, meaning the mountains, our dog crawling out of the lungs of the mysterious beast he found. And it sounds almost prehistoric, right? Like he's come across this cavernous, you know, chunk of ribs and he's crawling out of them. And it's weird and interesting.
Yeah, Jason, the mountains I realize now were not there, I think is what gives me the read that I have, which is he can't talk about this memory with whoever that other is, whoever that we and are is. And that's why it's magical and mysterious, and he can't get at the facts. And certain images stick with him, but we can't, you know.
I still don't really get it. I mean, how does he realize now that they're not there?
To continue thinking about it, like upon second thought, upon writing about it, upon, you know, you remember something one way and then you think about it longer and realize, oh no, it was that way, not this way.
Yeah, jump down a little bit further in the poem, right? Lost as much, but more at home. We learn to distinguish dream from wish. And that part to me feels like it's trying to tell me something, but there's a chunk missing. Like, well, what's the wish, right? Like, is this is it like a death wish? Is it like, what's the wish? What is the fantasy here, right? What is the reality? And it's the blurring of it seems to be at the heart of the poem, but I get a little befuddled by it.
Mm-hmm.
Tim, what were you thinking?
Well, one thing I think is that there are some things that confuse me from the first 2/3 of it, but for some reason they don't confuse me in a bad way. The mountains remind me of when I traveled every couple of years to South Korea in the summertime during the monsoon season. The clouds. The fog sort of seethes in between the low-lying mountains, and they do almost look like mysterious beasts. But then in the first line, he writes that the mountains, I realize, were now not there. There's this dissonance between these two images, along with the we learn to distinguish dream from wish. But what saves it for me is the image of the bloated tick on your nape and the tick popping. And for me, it goes from this abstract, surrealist type of imagery into this sort of micro image of that wonderful black tick. I'm not sure if you've seen ticks like this, but they get about marble sized, and we see a lot in Florida. But they're disgusting. They're so horrific because they're a black marble with the little tick legs on them,
filled with blood.
Yeah, and when they're on your cat or dog's embedded in its fur, you got to be a little bit careful about how you rip it out of there. And sometimes they pop, and it's just such a wonderful, disgusting but beautiful image. And you don't know when you first see them, you don't even know if it's a tick. It looks like some sort of growth because they're just sticking out. And so I'm not sure once I get to the end of the poem what I'm coming away with from it, except for I like it in the same way when I hear a piece by Stockhausen or Varese or something like that, and your head's sort of knocked sideways and your brain is piecing things together in a good way. So I'm not offended or bothered by the confusion, but I do wonder. I think I'm wondering in a good way. My head's in a good place when I read this, and I'm not sure if and in a way, I don't really want to spoil it with thinking about it too much, adding it up too much, because I feel like maybe I'm taking the wrong approach.
You trust. You're saying. I mean, you don't. It doesn't make a narrative sense, but you trust it.
Yeah. That's a much simpler way of putting it. Thank you, Jason. Yeah. How about you?
Do I trust it?
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about. I don't know. I mean, I love that image. I think it's a really beautiful line. When we came upon the muddy river between the mountains, I realized now we're not there. But I almost feel like it has an obligation to explain that to me. It's like watching like the first like 5 minutes of a murder mystery and then being like, okay, well, that was great. I want the resolution. But I do think I trust it. I think I'm leaning towards not needing that kind of explanation or resolution.
Yeah, I'm stuck with putting the explanation back on the title. If only you could remember. You know? I have memories of people that are dead, who they are the only people I was with in certain situations, and it sucks that you can't remember something with somebody and get the clarity of the detail. Was it night? Was it spring or fall? I remember wearing a hoodie. Was it you know what I mean? Like, there's no one to talk it through and remember it with. That's what that line makes me think about. Am I over romanticizing it, giving it extra credit?
No, it's funny because it's interesting that all of your thoughts go to like loss, and all of my thoughts go to like people where I'm like, you really don't remember that happening. Or I'm like just involved event. Where I'm like, no, and then you said this, and then I said that, and then like, and like, okay, well, if you said that, what's happened? You know, like, and it's like, if I say that's what happened, like that's what happened. But yeah, so all of my frustrations of people who can't remember things are with people who are present, not people who are gone.
Yeah. Well, I'm also thinking about one of my favorite lines to quote in classes, which is Tobias Wolff. First line of This Boy's Life is, memory has its own story to tell. So I think with either of our reads, that might work. You know, you remember it one way and I remember it another. If only you could remember this like I do. You know?
Yeah. So do we want to vote, or are we?
Yeah.
I think we should move on. Yeah. I'm ready. You ready? Oh no, Joe, you're going to have to vote. We have 4 people today.
Oh, interesting. That's right.
Our 5th canceled at the last minute. We're an even number. I wonder what's going to happen. Okay, are we ready?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
1, 2, 3, vote. What do we have there, Joe?
Yes, no.
Okay, so that's a yes. It's in.
All right. Congratulations, Todd Pierce.
Congratulations, Todd Pierce. Okay. So as our listeners may recall, if you've heard this before, we've let you know that the poems themselves appear on our podcast pages, which you can access at pbq.drexel.edu. And this next poem, the reason why I bring that up right now is this next poem is, I don't know, Jason, is there a word for this? It's formatted in 2 separate columns with white space in between. So one always has to wonder, do I read it across the page, left to right? Do I read each column separately? How do we attack the reading of this poem?
I do not know of a formal name for this.
Okay.
In a certain way, it makes more visual the Anglo-Saxon structure of the caesura in the middle of the line.
Right.
To guess, has worked really hard on exactly this form. And I know that when Tahimba does it, it's designed specifically so that it can be read both as first one column going down and then the second column going down, but also across.
Yeah.
And so
I have vague memories that that's what you're supposed to do, right? Be able to read it up and down and across.
Should we
and
do one of
make
each?
it make sense.
Yeah.
So what should we do right now? We have Beau Boudreaux's Brazilian, and we need to read this aloud.
Should we do one down and one across?
I think that's the best way to go both ways.
Okay. Who wants to do it?
Kathy, do you want to read it as columns first, and then Marion can read it as lines?
Okay. That's clever.
Okay, that sounds good. Nice,
Do you have it,
Jason.
Mary, even with your cold? You all right?
I think so. I
Okay.
think so.
I'm going to read two separate columns then. This is also a pretty short poem for this kind of format. Okay, Brazilian. She leans in, overwhelmed, awash, zoo stench, sniff. No, I really do admire hemline, zebra skin, oh, commando. Information I don't need, smoking, cocktailed. Towards my ear, shock of perfume, an old Easter lily, the cut of her bangs on the brow, Ms. Orlando, a cheat. She's the only one touching my arm. So that is the poem in columns.
And that's great. Okay, so here's the poem, reading the two columns as if they're one line across with the caesura in the middle. Ready? So, Brazilian. She leans in towards my ear, overwhelmed, awash, shock of perfume, zoo stench, sniff, an old Easter lily. No, I really do admire the cut of her hemline, zebra skin, bangs on the brow, oh, commando, Ms. Orlando. Information I don't need, a cheat. She's the only one smoking, cocktailed, touching my arm.
I have to say that I love it read left to right.
I like both.
The way Marion just read it. And if we read it in that order, I am smitten.
Well, I
The
was
columns
getting smitten when you were reading.
What?
I was getting smitten when you were reading those columns. I was actually coming at this as a disbeliever. Like I was not thinking it was going to work with just the columns being read.
Mm-hmm.
But it does. They do have a sort of gravitational force. Each of them has its own sort of universe of sense in the two columns and also across the page.
Mm-hmm.
So I was surprised by being pleased with both.
Yeah, somewhere back in my mind, I recall learning that it should work both ways, right? The should with air quotes. What were you going to say, Tim?
Oh, I like both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like it's sort of the same as the previous poem where it kind of knocks my head a little bit sideways trying to put the images together. But it sort of reminds me of the situation where they are in the poem with the perfume and the cocktails and this sort of romantic type of situation where your head is kind of knocked sideways and all the details are skewed and spattered all over the place, and nobody's going to come away from the situation with the same memory. I like that. I like that it's working like that in this poem.
So it's about being like approached by someone at a party?
Somewhere where there's cocktails and
I saw
flirting.
Brazilian and I immediately went to waxing.
Well, I
Yeah,
do believe
yeah.
that she's been waxed. I think Ms. Orlando has had a Brazilian.
I thought it was a poem
And that's
about
the
getting
TMI.
Then she's like talking about what this woman leaning in and doing her intimate waxing job.
Or at least talking. I think she might mention that she's had a Brazilian. I think she might mention that while she has her hand on his arm and smokes and drinks a cocktail. Potentially.
Do you get O Commando?
Well, I think she might have a Brazilian and not be wearing underpants.
You can use that for women. I thought Commando only applied for men.
What else are we supposed to say? Panty free?
Well, I thought you just aren't wearing underwear. I didn't think that was like
No. I think, I don't know. Marion and I say commando, don't we, Mare?
Absolutely, right? I think she's got no drawers on.
And that's how we know she's a Brazilian.
What's
What?
what?
And that's how the speaker knows that this woman has a Brazilian line. I'm so focused on
I know. Listen, I'm with you. When I read Brazilian, I was like, oh, this is about waxing somebody's situation. But right. So then Commando resonates with that notion of just being, without underpants and having no hair. Right. Which is possible. But that, I have to say though, it makes the whole first part of the poem a little bit like rough and funny, right? She leans in towards my ear, overwhelmed, awash, a shock of perfume, zoo stench, sniff an old Easter lily, right? Like, hang on. Now, if this is about a Brazilian like waxing, then the zoo stench is off this woman. And is it off her body because of the whoa, what is that, right?
I don't know. I think that's a very legitimate read because then the speaker says, no, I really do admire the cut of her hemline. Commando, Ms. Orlando, information I don't need. It's too much is revealed, potentially, right?
So it's not really about being seduced. It's about being a little grossed out.
A little repulsed, perhaps, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. The speaker really does admire her hemline and the bangs on the brow.
No, I think he's trying to persuade himself. That's kind of gross.
That's pretty rough. And old Easter lily, if we're talking about her, waxed area, right? And to call it a lily is lovely, but to call it an old Easter lily, that's a dried up little flower.
Well, and lilies have a very strong smell.
Mm-hmm.
And the older it gets, the less it's nice.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think she's a tiny bit redeemed, Ms. Orlando. Let's just say the woman with the Brazilian is Ms. Orlando. Okay. I don't think maybe that's part of it. The speaker is having a push-pull moment with her. There is something, she's the only one smoking, cocktailed, touching my arm. Yeah. That's a little sexy, right? Sexy in a good way.
I think that's my inclination to read it there, right? Yes, it does suggest waxing, right? But if it just suggests also culture, where she's from, who she is, what's her sort of ethnic background, right? Brazilian. And then this description of this push-pull, flirtation, repulsion, that's enough for me. I'm interested in it. If it is about the waxing though, if it's a Brazilian waxing reference, that makes it very funny. And and talk about trust. Do you trust that as a layer of the humor, or is it just an accident of calling the Ms. Orlando Brazilian?
I don't know. Maybe I'm in too good of a mood today, even though I'm so overwhelmed. But I think the two reads match up with the two columns, with the two ways to read it. It's all working for me in that puzzle of a way. Either way, it's working, right? It's a Brazilian or she's Brazilian. Read it up and down. Read it sideways. Either way, we all know what commando means.
Or zebra print, not leopard print.
Yeah.
I think do we want to vote? I mean, I feel like I'm personally a little. I'm more disoriented than I really want to be in this.
Okay. All right. Let's vote. You ready?
All right.
1, 2, 3.
Joe, are you voting? No.
Yeah.
1 no, 2 yes.
Oh, and Beau Boudreaux got in. Same score as Todd Pierce, 3-2, a positive to to rejection. And so we're 2 for 2 today. That's such great news. All right. That's exciting stuff. And I don't know if I should read this to you or not, but I'm going to. Isabella Fandanza is one of our most fabulous students here, about to graduate, and she was supposed to join us. She sent me a text since we've been here, and it says, "Holy balls, I overslept." I am so sorry. Arg, I fell asleep with my computer on the couch last night. This term stinks. So there's a couple images for you. If Isabella is on a few of the earlier podcasts, so listen in to what she has to say earlier.
So that's a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Holy balls.
Holy balls, I overslept. With 3 exclamation
Holy
points.
balls, I overslept.
Yeah. Because no matter where you show up in that, it would work. Right?
Yeah.
So we would love listeners to know what you think about things that we're saying here, about the work, about our topics. Please let us know on our Facebook page. Each episode has its own event, so look for episode 8 if you want to talk about this one. Sign up for our email list at pbq.drexel.edu. We only send about 4 emails a week, and just so that we cover every way to communicate with you. If you send us a self-addressed stamped envelope, we'll send you a really wonderful PBQ Podcast Slush Pile sticker for your laptop. It's just the size of a Post-it note, so it'll look real cute there. Jason, have an amazing party.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Jason and Michael Broder too, right? It's Jason's book and Michael's book.
Yeah. And Marion, drink all the vitamin C that you can get your hands on.
Whiskey.
And the whiskey. It's later. You can be on the whiskey. I have such a full day happening when we get off of here. But you can start in on the whiskey. I'll do that later. I'll join you later. All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good work. Bye, everybody.
This podcast is produced through a joint venture of Drexel University's Office of Information Resources and Technology and the Painted Bride Quarterly Magazine. This podcast is the property of Painted Bride Quarterly Magazine. All rights reserved.